to order the Lee County Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, March 14th, 2022. Dr. Miller will give our invocation.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity to gather and do business on behalf of Lee County students and this community. Please guide us as we consider doing what is best and right for the children. We pray this in your Son's holy name. Amen.
I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Appreciate all of you being here. You have tonight's agenda before you. With the consent of the board, I would like to separate motions for action item 1, which is the appointment of the legislative delegate and the alternate delegate to GSBA convention, and action item number 6, which is the permission to name the bond agent and open a new bank account, just to simplify for documentation purposes. And I would also like to add a discussion item to the agenda for to discuss a tentative called meeting, which Dr. Miller will cover in greater detail. And if there are no objections to these or any questions, we can adopt the agenda as amended. We have a couple of presentations, and the first I would like to, there's Miss Emily Reed for the Brave Kindness Run. Dr. Miller.
Okay, well, Amelia Reed is an 8th grade student at Lee Middle East, and she and her family are here today to make a special presentation to the Board of Education from the Kindness Run. So I'm going to call them down front, and there's a couple of other important people that we would like them to come up front. If you want to do the first part, and then we'll bring the others up as well. Picture of the four y'all.
Okay.
I'll come in there.
Okay.
Y'all
Thank
should-
you. Oh, where's she going? There she is.
Yeah.
Enjoying it?
Yeah, well, she's got to give that to somebody, I think.
Well, we're gonna split it in half because
Okay.
it may not divide, we're just gonna rip it in half.
Okay.
No, she gave us the real check. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So, John, would you like to say a word or two? I'm putting you on the spot about your event. And so I was talking to your mom and dad. It's really cool how it came about and what you're doing with this money.
Yes, I just want to say thank you to the Board of Education, because without them we wouldn't have been able to host it. We're going to be hosting it again next year around the same time at Lee County Elementary School. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who made it possible.
Okay. Thank you. And at this time, we would like to recognize our, get this right, back-to-back state championship game day cheerleading team. Dr. Miller.
Well, the great the great John Wooden said, winning takes talent, to repeat takes character. And I think these student athletes sitting here this evening represent that talent and character, and they represent us so well. 3-time state champions, incredible. Nobody's done that before that in this sport or in this school system, so we congratulate you. If y'all want to come up. Yeah, y'all come up front. We'll get a picture. Coaches.
Go for it, Dr. Boyd. All right, ladies. All right, 1, 2, I'm taking 20,000 up there. Thank you. Awesome, great job, guys.
Just, this is our coach and ninth grade
How y'all
teacher,
tonight?
Emily Smoke, and she's gonna say a word or two about the team and what happened. And then we have a video we're gonna show as well.
Oh yes, I forgot to send a video. Okay, so again, these are our three-peat back-to-back state champions. Game day cheer is kind of new in Georgia. This was the fourth season they did it. We've been competing 3 years, won all 3 of the years that we've competed. It's a fun sport. I think that sometimes it's just, I don't know, y'all help me out. Is it more fun sometimes than the competitive? It's not as stressful. It's really a competition about sideline cheer and what do we do in front of football games. I always tell them to picture college sideline cheerleading, and that's kind of what we're after, what we hope to show the judges and show the crowd. They work so hard. I mean, these 24 girls, the coaches, everything, they put in so many hours. Cheerleading, just like anything, has become a year-round sport. These girls practice all summer. They cheer football games on Friday nights. They have competitions on Saturdays. And then once football season's done, we shift right into game day season and prepare for this competition. So they put in the work, they put in the hours, and we're here because of the support of our board, of our administration at the schools, our community. None of this would be possible without all of us. It takes a team effort. So thank y'all so much, and again, I'm just so proud of these girls. So thank y'all. We will take donations for rings. Plug in there.
Yes. Mr. Dallin is in here. So years ago, Mr. Dallin would come in and try to teach us offense, defense. And the one thing about this competition is they give you a cue and the girls have to know whether they need to do an offensive cheer or a defensive cheer. And there was a time earlier in the season I thought I was gonna have to get you to come on back in. But y'all are awesome.
Well, thank you, ladies. Incredible accomplishment representing our community and our school system. And obviously, y'all put a lot of time and effort into this, but I also know you're great students and citizens in our high school, so that means a lot. It does take talent and character, as Coach Wooden said, and you exemplify that.
Congratulations again. We'll move into our regular meeting now. Give y'all a chance to
I need them to cheer us up.
The board has had the opportunity to review the February 14th and February 28th minutes. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion.
May I have a second?
A second.
Is there any further discussion or questions on the minutes? Being none, it is moved and seconded that the February 14th and February 28th minutes be approved as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, there's the presentation of the January 2022 financial report. The board has also had the opportunity to review those. Is there a motion to approve those financials?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Are there any questions?
I have a question here.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a line item that has kind of appeared, I think it was in the last financial report, and I see it again in this financial report about homeless children. Tell me what that is.
It's a federal program that, it's just a federal program grant. Is Brooke here?
She's not.
Okay. We get like $40,000 for that grant. I'm thinking off the top of my head, but it's for homeless activities.
We're providing funds for the children at school,
Yes.
at home.
Yes, ma'am. They're homeless as defined by McKinney-Vento.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way we look at it, and then it's used to help cover transportation costs and provide other services that the students may need. We actually, I don't know if you know this, some people may know it, but sometimes you might see a Lee County school bus in another community, not in Lee County, and they're there to transport students who were in Lee County at one time, but through circumstances were unable to continue. And so with that, the goal was not to disrupt their learning and their education. So we go sometimes to Worth or Doherty County to pick up students.
Okay, and so the funds come out of this particular program?
They help support that. They can't underwrite all the costs associated with it, but they do help.
And then I had one more question. The after-school program.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me some of the things we're spending money on, Gary.
Right now, it's just the salary and the program cost, but what we were talking about, we were going to, what was we talking about today? That
We need to make an upgrade on the sound system in the Clay Auditorium. And we're thinking that money would be, a portion of it would be purposed for that, the sound system. We had a Black History program a few weeks ago and the sound went out. And then we had the Descendants play. They had sound problems, and there was a third event where they've had sound issues, and we need to update the microphones and the sound system in there.
That's what it's used for, is enhance other things at other campuses or at the primary school, or one of the schools that's out there.
The estimates will be, it's gonna be around $60,000 to do that.
It seems like it's relatively consistent, the amount of money that we're spending, so that would just be the
Salaries
for
and
the
activities.
individuals. Okay,
Usually in the end of summer, when we get, at the end of the year, and we know what kind of fund balance we're gonna have and how much we can fund activities, then I know how much out of that we'll need and fund that and other programs and flooring at schools and stuff like that.
thank you.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve the January 2022 financials as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. You have tonight's consent agenda before you. Dr. Miller, would you like to speak about the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am. This is routine for this time of year. There are 16 recommendations for employment, 12 resignations, 2 reassignments, 10 requests for fundraisers, and 2 out-of-state or overnight field trip.
May I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve.
May I have a second?
One second.
Is there any discussion or questions regarding the consent agenda?
Yes. Ms. Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Tell me what a virtual archery tournament is.
Well, it's when they try to film it as best they can. You hope that it pans and it catches every kid while they're shooting. Yeah, it's not nearly as much fun as a regular archery tournament. Yeah.
And usually about how many schools participate?
Well, that's how they competed for state this year, was virtual, the last 2 years. So it's not something that's new for our archery teams.
But it's a fundraiser for the elementary school, isn't it? You're gonna do it as a fundraiser?
Yes, they sell concessions and stuff like that while they're there, yeah.
Okay. I had never seen that before. So, thank you for the explanation.
Is there any further discussion? It has been moved and seconded that the March 14th, 2022 consent agenda be approved as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, Dr. Miller will present the monthly superintendent reports.
Well, I will begin, as you can tell from the desk here, that this is School Board Appreciation Week, and on behalf of Lee County Schools, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the Lee County Board of Education for their dedication and service. Strong board leadership is vital to the success of our students, and Lee County has long enjoyed the blessing of student-focused leaders who ensure the success of our public schools. I want to thank you for all you do on behalf of our students in this community, and you have various things there from the different schools to thank you for all you do for the school system.
Thank you.
Yes, thank everybody
Yeah,
very
thank you.
much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Can we get this every?
Moving right along to the SPLOST report for this month. February was yet another record-setting month for SPLOST collections. SPLOST generated $392,050.23 last month. That's the highest total ever for the month of February. And this also means that SPLOST collections have surpassed $390,000 in 11 of the last 12 months. That's really, really good news. We're very thankful for that. And if you look there, you can go back sometime if you want and go back through. What I do is I highlight the current month and then I go back and compare it to across that line for February and see how it matches up. And it's been really good. Food service, as you can see in your reports, there were 96,070 meals served last month. About 2/3 of the meals are lunches. So thankful for our food service team and all their hard work. Later this month, the school food service program will go through a state audit. The audit is set to begin March 28th and conclude March 30th. I think this will go well. I know they've worked hard to get ready, and I will update the board members next month on how that turns out. But I think we'll do well. Yes, ma'am.
Are we still on, all of our students are still on
Yes, ma'am.
free lunch?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Through this school year. I do not know about next year.
Okay.
I'll talk to Ms. Dunn about that. But yes, you are correct.
Okay.
Finally, in student health services, I just want to say that 2 years ago things really changed in this area, and this is about the time that school was closed initially for 2 weeks. And there was a conference call with Governor Kemp and all the states, the school superintendents around the state, and then an emergency General Assembly session, and the school was closed through, we thought, March 31st at the time. Obviously, we didn't come back, but I want to read something about the COVID pandemic. Soon we will mark 2 years since COVID shut down schools. We announced the closing of schools on Thursday, March 12th, 2020. Since then, we've been through a lot. Transition in one day from in-person to virtual learning, ending extracurricular activities in the spring of 2020, postponing graduation, delaying the start of school in August 2020, reopening school during a pandemic, contact tracing, social distancing, mitigation measures, virtual learning, hundreds of cases, thousands of quarantines, millions of dollars, and 5 surges. We reopened in 2020 when more than half of the nation's schools remained closed. And I'm thankful for the leadership and support of the school board, and I appreciate the cooperation of the families of Lee County and this community. And I'm especially grateful to the teachers and staff who've gotten us this far. They have been amazing. They have really been great, and we've been very blessed. Today, there's 1 case in the entire school system. Just 6 weeks ago, we had more than 350 cases. So that's a marked improvement. Very thankful for that, and I hope it bodes well for the future, and we can keep moving forward. And you have the report from the nurses. You can see there the office visits and the reasons why, and they're back to the tummy aches and scratches on the playground and things like that we more normally deal with. And I was talking with a nurse last week, and she was very thankful for that, to be back to the normal kind of things that they normally have to deal with. Plant operations.
I have a question on that.
Yeah,
So
yes, sir.
Are we, I mean, as far as the media's concerned, COVID doesn't exist anymore. Are we back to normal here with policies and guidelines and contact tracing?
We are level 1. Last week, the Department of Public Health ended the requirement for schools to report on their COVID cases. So that was, that happened last week. We still monitor and track. We still are going to do what we can to be safe, but we are operating on a more as normal as possible right now. One thing that we did this week we haven't done in a couple of years is we're turning the water fountains back on. And that takes a little bit of time, but it's warming up. The kids are getting hot at recess and PE. And many of them have water bottles, but this just makes it more accessible for all the students. And, we hope that that'll be the path in the future. There's some legislation going in the General Assembly that's going to shape how we move forward if it passes. So, but I think we're operating as normally as possible right now. We're at level 1, which means we're just trying to take precautions, but operate normally. plant operations have begun the process of turning water fountains back on, as I just mentioned. As you can see in the plant operations report, that they are working on the updating the interior of Lee County Middle School East. And really, what's neat to me about this project is it started with the kids. That they surveyed the students, and one of the things the kids wanted was to see some brighter colors and some new imagery in the schools. And that's actually a how do you call that, Mr. Grant? It's a sticker.
Screen printing, yes, sir.
Screen
It's a
printing.
sticker that you peel off.
Yep. So really like that idea versus the way you used to paint stuff on the walls. Really appreciate their work, and it's great when the kids can help us come up with new ideas and new ways to do things. Last week we met with the architect and construction management for the Lee County primary renovation project. Our hope is to begin this work at the end of this current school year. I mean, the physical start of it. So, and that's all the reports.
Any further questions? Next on the agenda is the public participation portion of the meeting, and this is the time where we invite members of the public to address the board on issues of concern. There have been no requests from the public to speak at tonight's meeting. Next, we move to discussion and action items. There are several. The first will be the appointment of a legislative delegate and alternate delegate to the GSBA Assembly to be held, if I looked correctly, June 9th through June 11th, 2022. Last year, and I have to check, it could be done virtually or in person. It was optional, I'm not sure. Do you know which way we're going this year, Jennifer?
Don't.
We can look at that, because I feel like they'll do the same this year. Is there a motion to appoint the primary delegate to the GSBA Assembly to be held in June 2022?
Who wants it? I'll appoint.
You don't want me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want it. You want Ms. Donna?
I'll do it.
I motion to
I'm gonna
appoint Ms.
go.
Donna.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second Ms. Donna's gonna be our delegate.
Is there any further discussion or questions on this? Okay. It has been moved and seconded that Ms. Donna Ford be appointed to the primary delegate to the June 22 GSBA Assembly. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Okay, now for the alternate delegate. May I have a motion to appoint the alternate delegate to the GSBA Assembly to be held in June of 2022?
I'll make a motion to declare Lee our alternate.
Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion or questions? It is moved and seconded that Claire Lang be appointed as the alternate delegate to the June 2022 GSBA Assembly. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? None, and the motion passes 5-0. In your packet is the annual request from the GSBA for proposed changes to the GSBA legislative positions. And it notes that any proposals or amendments must come from the whole board and not an individual or the superintendent solely. The current legislative positions are located on the GSBA website, and a link is included in that board packet. Please take time to review these over the next few weeks, and any changes that you may have are due to GSBA on or before the April 18th, 2022. And I printed out those if anybody wants a hard copy. As far as this matter, there's no further action required at this time. Are there any questions? The next item on the agenda is the request for approval of a governance team, board and norms and protocols that we discussed at the last planning meeting. The board had the opportunity to review these, presented in the current package, as well as the February 28th, 2022 planning meeting. Dr. Miller, do you have any additional comments?
We have a strong tradition of a very effective school board. And one way to ensure that tradition continues is to develop board norms. This is standard practice for school boards across the country. And in order for our board to be an exemplary board, as recognized by the Georgia School Board Association, norms have to be adopted. And I believe this is an exemplary board and has been. And I think this is I recommend the board approve the norms.
May I have a motion to approve the Lee County Governance Team operating procedures as presented?
I'll make the motion.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Are there any questions or discussion? It is moved and seconded that the Lee County Governance Team operating procedures be approved as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. And the motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a request for approval of the strategic waiver school system contract extension. Dr. Miller, would you please address this?
Yes, ma'am. About 2 weeks ago, Yashana Hill, who's a staff attorney for the Georgia Department of Education, contacted me about extending our strategic waiver school system contract. And in order to do that, the local board has to approve a Swiss contract amendment. It's referred to as Swiss for short. And we have to have this completed by June 1st. You have a copy of the contract, I believe, in your packet. And I recommend the board approve the Swiss contract amendment. And if you remember, we're strategic waiver school system. We committed to this several years ago. And because of COVID, because of the testing, the accountability component was delayed a little bit, and this is in light of that. So we're going to ask for a 2-year extension.
So the COVID accountability is probably the driving.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Mary may be able to say a little more about it. We didn't test in the spring of 2020, and so that was the year, I think, that the accountability benchmarks were set. We didn't have any, and then last year, the next year when we tested, a lot of children opted out, so they really weren't sure about that being a benchmark. So this is just an extension, and this will be good for the school system.
And can somebody explain to me exactly what the difference is in strategic waiver system? And plus, we have some new board members on here, and I just want to know what the difference is.
Yes, sir. School systems were given 3 options: traditional, charter, or strategic waiver. And the amount of flexibility increased with each option. Traditionals just continued as you did before, no flexibility with state requirements. Strategic waiver provided a little more flexibility, and the flexibility was in exchange for some accountability. We're going to hit these benchmarks with our testing. And then the charter provided the most flexibility, but it also had more accountability and provided some additional funding. And we actually began this years ago. It's been probably 10 years ago that we started this process of considering these, and we actually became a strategic waiver system in 2015. We've been under those benchmarks, but the 2020 was the 5 years, and so that's COVID intervened and kind of set aside some of those accountability measures. So this is an extension of that. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, accountability and flexibility with what? Budgeting, accountability with, grading, testing, and funding.
It's the flexibility on several of the official Code of Georgia rules that apply to the Board of Education rules that fall under that. And so we have those listed on the website under the About LCSS. I think it's Appendix B. I might be wrong on that, but under that, there's a list of all of the different things we've asked for flexibility on.
In the past, you would apply for waivers on things like class size, and this just kind of will,
There is a sorry, there's no parents and students.
And so on Exhibit B, flexibility, that's everything that we ask for flexibility on. So underneath all of those, it's everything from the scheduling, class size, you name it, at school attendance, compulsory attendance, those types of things. And a lot of this was kind of across the state. Several of the districts, I mean, pretty much most of us have the same rules or things listed in our flexibility. And even some of the ones that we didn't ask for, they came back with, you might want to add this in because you might want to have flexibility with that. But in doing so with this flexibility, there's an accountability piece, and there's 3 ways that you can meet the accountability, and that's on one of the other exhibits that you see on that. And so basically this extension of the contract is saying there's no way for us to really gauge whether you've met your contract because we don't have the information due to COVID that you're supposed to have. So we're gonna extend your contract, and so they're just asking for us to go through this process to do so.
Do you guys have an idea of whether you would meet?
Yes, I think
Yes.
we would, because
Okay.
because every year to this point, there's a checkpoint, and it was a 5-year contract, and we had already met at all of our schools but one within the first 3 years. And so then after that, we worked on the issue that we had there, and we were in good standing, and then COVID happened, so.
We're in no way trying to get a waiver on the reduction of what the state requirements are for, like, say, graduation.
Oh, no, no. No, this is actually, they sent this to us and said, you need to do this. Because this is how, we were wondering how they were going to determine that, whether we met the contracts or not, because we don't have all the data that, and this is through, governor's office as well, so.
But I'm assuming if there's 3 levels, there's pros and cons to each level.
Yes.
Yes.
And so we just went with the middle level based on what our custom.
There was a lot of discussion.
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's more
Yeah.
complicated than I make it
Right.
sound, but that's what we chose to go with the
It
middle.
began under
But I mean,
Dr. Walker's tenure, I mean, and I think this goes back maybe 15 years that this had been talked about, and then it was finally brought to fruition, and then we had to commit, and we had begun that process 8 years ago and finalized it 7 years ago.
But when the contract is up, we will decide to continue with strategic waiver or not.
Yes, most likely. The advantage of charter was you could get some additional funding, but, you know, the more flexibility, the more accountability. It's not that we're concerned about
Right, I got you.
accountability, it's just the model, the way it was set up. We just had some questions about, it doesn't mean anybody that's a charter system, I mean, they had to make the decision for their school district, not criticizing anyone for that. I think there's 2 traditional systems in the state.
Okay.
The traditional was so punitive, there was no waivers, nothing. I mean, it almost got thrown out just at the beginning, just talking about it. And didn't, I would say most of the systems in the state do the strategic waiver option.
I would think the majority is.
I have seen several of the boards in the last couple of weeks approving the same extension, so.
And I was just curious. Jamie was asking me the other day, and I couldn't really give him the answer. So now I can.
I knew I shouldn't have called.
It is complicated. I mean, there's a lot there if you look at that list of waivers. And some of the waivers that were available, we did not take. There were some that we chose not to do because we just didn't, for us, was not the right path. And so I think it was thought through, a lot of time and consideration, beginning with Dr. Walker and the board at that time, and then this is the next step is to extend it, and we feel confident we'll be able to meet the benchmark if the board approves.
May I have a motion to approve the contract amendment as presented for the extension of the strategic waiver school system contract terms?
Make a motion.
May I have a second? Okay, is there any further discussion or questions? It is moved and seconded to approve the contract amendment as presented for the extension of the strategic waiver school system contract terms. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a request for permission to sell surplus equipment. You have had the opportunity to review the listing provided in your packet. Dr. Miller, do you have any additional comments on?
Most of this is Lee primary media items. If you need a Duquesne projector, this is your opportunity.
When
I
nobody
remember
bids
what
on
that
it,
is. That's the
what they
one
got.
that would beep and then play the tape and then the film would roll up like Jennifer's doing now. Except it wasn't digital, it was a picture of the Boston Tea Party or something like that. So these are older items like record players that we need to surplus.
Does nice things like this typically sell, or do we end up?
I'm not sure. Do you know, Gary, if anybody?
I don't want to.
Well, I was just saying, when they don't sell, where's the pile you put them so I can go visit them?
Probably a trash can. Somebody around something.
Let me know,
Some
I'm gonna
pretty
get one
old
of them
technology.
camcorders.
We have specific things we use the funding for. What, if we sell these items,
Those kind of items like $1 a piece usually. Up to $5, but like desk and chairs. But when we do buses, they're going up to $2,000 and stuff like that. So I mean,
what do we do with the money? My question.
it goes back in the general fund and used for normal operations.
Because the girls need rings.
We can't. I understand.
We're fundraising queen.
We can give them CD players or cassette.
May I have a motion to approve the sale of surplus equipment as presented?
I'll make the motion.
May I have a second? Is there any further question or discussion? Okay, it is moved and seconded to approve the sale of the surplus items as presented to the board. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a request to approve a new bond agent and to open a new bank account. Dr. Miller, would you please cover these items?
Sure. We plan to issue bonds this summer for the SPLOST that voters approved November 3rd, 2020. And Raymond James is the company that we've worked with on bond issues in the past, and we're requesting the board's permission to continue that relationship, working with them.
May I have a motion to name Raymond James as the system's bond agent to oversee the bond issuance for the East Blast approved by voters in November of 2020?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Sure, second.
Is there any further discussions or questions? It is moved and seconded to name Raymond James as the system's bond agent to oversee the bond issuance for the new East Blast. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. Do you want to address the new bank account?
Yes, ma'am. I thought we were going to separate those two.
Okay. And the motion passes 5-0. Okay, may I have a motion to open a new account with Colony Bank to handle the monetary transactions associated with aforementioned bond issuance?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Sure, second.
Is there any further discussion or questions
I'm
on this?
going to abstain from voting on
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And this account would be to receive the bond funds, correct? Mr.
All the
Chairman?
bond funds have to go and it'll be accounted for separately, and when they issue the bonds, the wiring instructions will be in there, so we'll have to get a bank account, set up for the bond issue.
This account, will it be like a money market so that we can get the maximum amount of interest off of it? That would be, I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, I think we do pay interest on most of y'all's accounts.
Yeah, you do.
So there would be some interest paid on it. Not much nowadays, you know that, but we do pay.
But I know there's different accounts, because I've been in that, in my business, but there's ways to make more money off of our money than others. So it depends on which account you have it in, and if it's an interest-bearing account or.
What's that interest bearing, Gary? You gonna put it in the money market, or what were you thinking?
Be just like that, but I mean, I've got to have access to this. I mean, we can talk about some sweeps or something like that, but, because once we sell this, I mean, it's pretty much gonna be going out every month, but I mean,
So you have to make a withdrawal every month?
oh yeah, we pay the architect and the contractor once a month.
So it's once a month coming out, so. I think
You
with the
have
money
6 a
market,
month.
we have that.
Yeah. And it does pay a little better.
It has, is there anything else? It's been moved and seconded to approve the opening of a new account with Colony Bank to handle the monetary transactions associated with the aforementioned bond issuance. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Next, we have been asked to grant permission to provide a bus and driver to the 4-H. You've had the opportunity to review the request. Dr. Miller?
4-H is a great partner with our school system, and they need a school bus for a trip to Perry on Saturday, March 19th. And seeing this not a school day, won't be the pressure of getting our routes run. So we appreciate all they do for us, and I recommend the board approve this request.
Is there a motion to grant permission to provide a bus and driver to the Lee County 4-H for Project Achievement to be held in Perry, Georgia on Saturday, March 19th, 2022?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? It is moved and seconded to provide a bus and driver to Lee County 4-H as presented and discussed. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next, we have a request for approval of the 2022-2023 administrative and certified employment recommendation listings. This has been included in your board packet for your review. Dr. Miller.
The board has a list of administrators and certified positions for both the system and each school. And we request that the board approve the list so that we'll be able to issue contracts.
May I have a motion to approve the administrative and certified employment listings as presented?
I'll make a motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay. It is moved and seconded to approve the administrative and certified employment listings as presented. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And finally, there is a discussion of a tentative called meeting date. Dr. Miller?
Yes, ma'am. With Raymond James being our bond agent, we will need to do bond pricing. In order to get that done, the board would have to adopt the Series 2022 bond resolution. And then once that was adopted, if the board approved, they'd have to sign that resolution, the bond purchase agreement. So then we would need the Board of Commissioners to adopt a tax levy resolution. And they are going to meet on May 24th, that Tuesday. And so to get the pieces in order to get there, we would have to have a call meeting on the 19th, and that would be the purpose of the call meeting. Just wanted to share that with the board, and I will send you a document that has the timeline of what all needs to happen with that. Did you want to add anything to
Right
that?
now, it's in the court of our construction management, JCI. We've had a meeting last week, and basically, they took Greg's numbers and they are applying what's going on in the real world to those numbers with Amazon, all that kind of stuff, building places all over the stuff. But the real cost, and they're going to give us a good construction estimate. And So when we know that, then that's when we can tell the bonds, people how much we're gonna be needing to sell for bonds.
I think we need to consider when we do look at this, is prices they're not even leveling off, okay?
Right.
They continue to escalate, and with everything that's going on in the world, it is directly affecting what's happening with construction materials and things of that nature. So something we just need to really, I don't wanna over-escalate,
Right.
but we need to be prepared. It's kinda like you budgeting for diesel for the buses and knowing what it's gonna hit. I mean, it's the same way with the building materials, so, I mean, and I don't really know how we're gonna.
Would you
come to that.
share what you were saying about the I-beams earlier today?
Well, that's what they discussed, who was the company, Google, is building
Or Amazon?
but the 1,000-acre, 100 acre.
That's Google.
They're building a 100-acre building inside, and they're getting all the I-beams they can get. And these distribution centers for Amazon that they're building, like 2 in every state additional, and they don't care what they pay for the price of an I-beam. I mean, so they want them. So that's taking over us being able to get what we usually do is what do you call it, pre-engineered metal building, and we're really having to look at that. Do we want to do that form of construction, or do we do another different form of construction? And our JCI is working really hard on that as far as getting materials for the whole project.
Yeah, I've seen where some fabricated buildings are having to be constructed because of the pre-engineered material is not available, or the lead time is pushed out for a couple of years. So I mean, it's something, once we get these numbers back, you know, we really need to look at where we're at with what we have budgeted for this project, the amount of money that we're gonna have to allocate for it, and where we're gonna be. And that's kind of what we alluded to, the fact several meetings ago that, you know, this is just not the best time to be doing construction, but
But it's also not a
Is it
good.
gonna come back
I don't-
down? I mean,
that's
that's,
the
I mean,
question.
that's the,
yeah.
So,
The only thing I caution you with that is we made application for state funds, and I don't know the exact, but it's around $2 million. If we don't do this project the way we said we would do, we can't go back and reapply for those funds. It's one shot at it, so.
Yeah, but if it comes up and say, well, we got $2 million and it comes in at $7 million, then we, you know, that's the,
Right.
so with that point, I don't, what do you call it, value engineering?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to do a lot of that. I mean, I don't wanna take shortcuts just because it's.
I mean, basically that building's gonna get a new roof. It's gonna get gutted as far as new flooring and new ceiling tile and new lights and stuff like that. And new windows and air conditioning. And we're adding a gymnasium and taking the current gym and turning it into the media center. And then we're putting in restrooms. The current restrooms do not meet the handicap, so
we're adding, there's an awning in front that only one car can go through, so we're gonna make it more like what Lee Elementary and Twin Oaks have, where 2 could pass through undercover in the event of inclement weather, and then there'll be like those schools have a sidewalk and a covered area in front. They don't really have that now.
More
We just
parking.
got the sidewalk a couple of years ago. We just extended that so they didn't have to walk in the grass. So it's going to be really nice. It's just the question of the financial cost with the war and the petroleum prices
and to scheduling.
Yes, sir. The contractor was saying they're building a new school and another system, and was it door joist or something they had to get, and if they had not gotten it that day, that would have delayed that school several months because of the demand that's out there, and that was a reference to these huge building projects that are going on.
How is JCI with, like, you know, when you get in these situations, a lot of people have alternative materials that they use that, you know, one wouldn't be a traditional steel, and I'm not going with
Well,
steel.
what you have, the good thing with construction management, we always have Greg as our architect. they will throw out like another idea, and then the architect will determine if that idea meets the safety protocols and stuff like that. But yeah, they wouldn't recommend something that wasn't, but it would need the architect's rubber stamp that, yeah, we can go that way.
They're willing to look at other
Oh,
alternatives.
sir.
Yeah.
In our meeting last week, there was a portion, I can't remember, Debbie, you may remember, it was maybe the media center where the design called for cinder block, that we could go back with the particle board, and it's less.
Sheetrock.
Sheetrock, yes, and it was less expensive.
And metal stuff.
And it, it would serve the function for what we needed. So that's, one example, but they will work with us on that.
Since you're dealing with primary age kids, and then they also came up with a thing that if we moved a wall, it might be possible that we could get away without having to sprinkle that building, and that would be close to $300,000. And I mean, they just threw that up, and Greg's like, we can run it by. I mean, so.
And they, when we built the multi-purpose building, the original design, that big window where the weight room is was curved, and that was very expensive. And so we went back and value engineered that out, and it looks nice, and it's a lot less costly. It saved us a great deal of money on that project.
Well, I like that kind of value engineering. That's what I like.
Yeah, our hope is this is going to be kind of like this, a beautiful new facility for our students. We primarily opened in '86, and it's really been updated along to keep it going, but it's time. The HVAC, the roof, it's time to make it over, and we can do this cheaper than we could build a new facility. And that's served us well in the past, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish here. Hopefully, these prices will.
Remember, hope that it won't take away from too many of the other projects we're gonna do, that you do have that flexibility. I mean, it will drive what we're able to do with the remainder of that SPOS.
And this is us going back to that list of when we last year prioritized what we wanted.
One of the main things, the color on the roof, that's going to be a main thing, and that's going to have to be ordered. I mean, Franklin has recommended a dark color for the roof rather than the green, so we would like to proceed with that if that's not a problem with any of y'all having a problem with the color of the roof.
I'm not an engineer, but dark usually attracts heat, doesn't it? And you're down in South Georgia.
Doesn't it fade?
Yeah, the green fades fast though.
Well, if green fades, red fades.
No, I'm talking like a dark, like a brownish color, something like
Like
that.
a bronze, and it's supposed to be guaranteed without fading.
If there was a color that was guaranteed, because when they start to fade, when you go down the street and see these houses, what is an A and E fee? What is that?
A and E.
Administrative.
Yeah.
A and E fee?
I am not looking at what you're looking at. Is it on my receipt?
Projected cost.
Okay. Architectural engineering would be my guess.
Testing, what is that?
Testing, we have to do bore testings and stuff like that on the, just on the ground. And anytime they do concrete, they pour concrete, they have to test the concrete.
Contingency, no.
Contingency, they usually throw 10% just for unknowns.
So A and E would be like.
I say architecture and engineering, I don't know.
Does Mr. Kinsey, does he still feel pretty confident in the bond issuance? given
Oh yeah,
market
he's feeling,
trends? So
he feels real good. He's even recommended that we possibly refinance the 2014 and save about $300,000 on that issue. That's $300,000 over a 12-year period or something like that, but it's still $300,000.
5/19, that's a Thursday, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. The county commission meets that, and we're flexible on time for y'all's. I know y'all are very busy, but that would be scope of the meeting would be to.
Is this something we could do virtual if it's more?
I think if we could, I'm not sure about the signing piece of it.
Signing's done a lot different now, but I mean.
Yeah, that may be, we can work around that.
Anything else?
And then
Is there any further business? And since there's no further business, the meeting is adjourned.